Welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I am genuinely so happy you're here today, because what we're going to do in this episode is something that I think is going to completely change the way you listen to English. Not just a little bit, I mean really change it. Because here's the thing. Most people study English grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, all the important stuff. But nobody really teaches you one of the most common things that happens in real spoken English. And that thing is this. People restart their sentences all the time. They start to say something. They stop. They go back. They say it differently. They add a word. They change direction. And if you don't know that this is happening, it can be incredibly confusing. You hear a sentence that seems broken. You hear words that seem out of place. And your brain goes, "Wait, did I miss something? Did I misunderstand?" And the answer is no. You didn't miss anything. That's just how people actually talk. And today, we are going to learn exactly what's happening and why. And you are going to feel so much more confident listening to real English after this. So stay with me. Let's do this together. Before we get into the actual conversations and practice, let me ask you something. Have you ever been watching a movie in English, or maybe a TV show, and someone says something and it just sounds weird? Like the sentence doesn't quite make sense. Like there's a word in the wrong place, or they start saying one thing and then suddenly the sentence goes somewhere completely different. And you rewind it, maybe 2, 3 times, and you still can't figure out what happened. Has that happened to you? It has happened to almost everyone who is learning English. And I want you to know that it is not your fault. It's not because your English is bad. It's because nobody taught you about this specific thing that real speakers do naturally, without even thinking about it. In linguistics, that's the study of language, this is called a false start, or a restart. When a speaker begins a sentence, then stops, and begins again, that is a restart. And it happens constantly. In casual conversation, in business meetings, in interviews, on podcasts, on the street, in coffee shops, everywhere. Native speakers do it dozens of times every single day, and they don't even notice. It's completely natural. It's a normal part of how the human brain works when we speak. We're thinking and talking at the same time, and sometimes our thoughts move faster than our words, or our words move faster than our thoughts. And we have to adjust. That adjustment is the restart. And here's what I want you to really sit with for a second. When a native English speaker hears a restart, their brain automatically processes it. They don't consciously think, "Oh, that was a restart." They just hear it, understand what the speaker means, and keep listening. It's invisible to them. But when you're learning English, your brain hasn't trained itself to do that yet. So when you hear a restart, your brain gets confused. It tries to make grammatical sense of everything it hears. And when the grammar seems broken, it freezes. It goes back. It loses the thread of the conversation. And that's the problem we're going to solve today. So what I want to do is walk you through the different types of restarts that happen in English. I'm going to explain each one, give you real examples with real conversations, and then we're going to practice together, so your brain starts to recognize these patterns automatically. By the end of this episode, your brain is going to be processing restarts just like a native speaker does, naturally and without stress. Sound good? All right, let's start. The first type of restart we're going to talk about is the word search restart. This is when a speaker is in the middle of a sentence and they can't find the right word. So they pause, they say something like or or I mean or like, and then they try again. It's as simple as that. They're just looking for a word in their head, they couldn't find it fast enough, so they stall. You do this too, probably. In your own language, everyone does. Let me give you an example. Imagine two friends, Sophie and Daniel, who are talking about a restaurant they went to last week. Daniel says this: "The food was really good. It was that kind of, you know, that food where everything is super fresh, and you can see them making it right in front of you." Now, did you catch that? Daniel said, "It was, it was." He started the sentence, paused, then started again. That pause with in the middle. That's a word, search restart. He was looking for the right description, and he needed a half second to find it. So he restarted. And the meaning? Totally clear. He means the food was impressive, fresh, made in front of you. Nothing was lost. The restart didn't damage the meaning at all. Now let's say that same sentence comes up when you're listening to a conversation in English, and you're at a B1 level. Without training, your brain might hear, it was that kind of, and get confused. It might think, why did he say it was twice? Is there a grammar pattern I don't know? And then you're focused on that instead of the actual meaning. But with training, with what we're doing today, your brain will hear, it was that kind of, and automatically think, he restarted. This is normal. The meaning is coming right now. And then you just listen for the meaning. Easy. Let me give you another example of a word search restart, but this time a little more complex. Let's say a woman named Priya is talking to her colleague Marcus about a project at work. Priya says, I think we need to, I don't know. We need to kind of rethink the whole approach. You know what I mean? Like, the strategy that we started with, it's not matching what the client actually wants anymore. Notice how many restarts there are in just those two sentences. I think we need to, I don't know, we need to kind of rethink. That's a restart right there. She started, she stopped, she said, I don't know, as a filler, and then she tried again. And then later, it's not matching. Another restart. She started to say something negative about the strategy, paused, and then completed the thought differently. Now, the important thing I want you to notice is that those restarts did not change the meaning at all. The meaning was completely clear. The project strategy isn't working and needs to change. And in fact, all those restarts actually made the message feel more real, more human, more honest. Because when someone restarts a lot, it shows they're thinking carefully, they're being genuine, they're not just saying a rehearsed answer. Restarts make conversation feel alive. So instead of being confused by them, I want you to start appreciating them for what they are. Signs of real, authentic human communication. Let's move to the second type of restart, which I call the correction restart. This one is when a speaker starts to say something and then realizes it's not quite right, so they stop and correct themselves. You can usually hear this with phrases like, or rather, I mean, actually, wait, or just a hard stop followed by a different version of what they were saying. Let's do some examples. Imagine two university students, Tobias and Nadia, who are talking about an exam they just had. Tobias says, I got there at like 9 o'clock. Wait, no, 8:30. Yeah, 8:30. Because I remember I had to rush through breakfast. That, wait, no, is a classic correction restart. Tobias started with the wrong time, realized it mid-sentence, stopped himself, and gave the correct time. Super simple. But if you're listening to this and your brain isn't ready for it, you might hear 9 o'clock and lock onto that as the fact, and then feel confused when 8:30 appears. The key is to train yourself to recognize the correction signal. Wait, no, and then update your understanding. The last version, he says, is the correct one. Always the last version. Here's another example. Nadia replies, "Oh, I know. I was so stressed. I studied until, God, I don't know, like 2 in the morning? Maybe 2:30. I actually lost track of time." Notice, I studied until, God, I don't know. That pause there is a kind of correction restart. She started to give a specific time but wasn't sure, so she softened it with, God, I don't know, and then gave an approximate time instead. The meaning is the same. She studied very late and was exhausted. The restart just added more authenticity to it. And this brings me to something really important that I want you to understand about how spoken English is different from written English. When you read English, everything is cleaned up. The writer had time to think, to edit, to remove all the false starts and restarts. The sentence you read is the final polished version. But when you listen to English, especially real, unscripted English, you're hearing the thinking process in real time. You're hearing the brain work. And the brain doesn't work in perfectly polished sentences. It works in chunks, in hesitations, in attempts and revisions. That is completely normal. That is human. And your job as a listener is not to be confused by it, but to follow it, to ride with it, to understand what the person means, even when the words aren't perfectly organized. Actually, you know what? Let's take a little break from the explanations for a moment and just listen to a conversation. I'm going to give you a longer exchange between two people, and I want you to just follow it. Don't analyze. Don't stop. Just listen and try to understand what's happening. We'll talk about the restarts in it afterward. Here's the scene. Two old friends, Carmen and Felix, are catching up over coffee. They haven't seen each other in about 6 months. This is what they say. Felix says, "So how's the new job? Are you happy with it?" Carmen says, "Honestly, it's good. I mean, it's not perfect, you know. It's like, at first I was I don't know, I was a bit overwhelmed. Because everything was new and I didn't really know the people yet. And the processes were really different from what I was used to. But now I think I'm finding my feet. Slowly." Felix says, "That's good. That sounds healthy, actually. Like you don't want everything to be perfect right away because then you'd have no room to... No, actually, you'd have no room to grow. That's what I mean." Carmen says, "Exactly. And my manager, she's she's strict, but in a good way. Like she has high expectations, but she actually explains things. She doesn't just criticize, she tells you why, you know? That's rare." Felix says, "Oh man, that is rare. I had a manager once who was like, you know those people who they love the sound of their own voice? Like they'd give you feedback, but it was never about you. It was always about showing how much they knew. God, that was exhausting." Carmen says, Yes, yes. My last manager was a bit like that too. Like he'd say, 'This is good, but..." and then spend 20 minutes on something that, well, that was a problem 2 months ago. Like, move on. Now. Did you follow that? Could you understand what Carmen and Felix were talking about? I think you could, right? Even with all those restarts. Even with all the "I mean" and the pauses and the changed directions. The conversation made sense. You understood that Carmen has a new job that's going well, that her manager is demanding but fair, and that Felix once had an annoying manager who loved to hear himself talk. All of that came through clearly. Beautiful. Now let's go back and look at some of those specific moments. When Felix said, "Are you happy with it?" he started with, "Is it?" and then stopped and restarted with, "Are you happy with it?" That's a restart. He started to ask one type of question and changed to a different, more direct question. The meaning was the same, but the second version felt more personal, more caring. When Carmen said, "I was kind of, I don't know, I was a bit overwhelmed," there's a classic word search restart. She found the word overwhelmed, but she took a moment to get there, and she softened it with "a bit" the second time, which is also something people do. They sometimes restart to adjust not just the word, but the feeling or the intensity of what they're saying. When Felix said, "You'd have no room to," no, actually, "you'd have no room to grow." That's a correction restart. He started to say something and then changed it. The "no" actually is the signal. He realized mid-sentence that he was going to say something slightly different from what he meant. So he stopped and corrected himself. And the corrected version, "no room to grow," was his actual point. This is the third type of restart I want to name for you. I'll call it the redirected restart. This is when the speaker starts going in one direction and then consciously decides to go in a different, clearer direction. It's like someone starts driving down a road, realizes it's not the right one, turns around, and takes the correct road. And they often signal this with words like "actually," or rather, "what I mean is," or just a very clear pause. Let me give you a fresh example of this. Imagine a man named Owen who is explaining something to his sister, Lily. Owen says, "I don't think he meant it badly. Like, I don't think he was trying to. I'm trying to say that the intention was probably good, even if the way he said it was wrong." So Owen started by saying, "I don't think he was trying to," and then he stopped and completely restarted with, "I'm trying to say that the intention was probably good." He redirected. The first version was coming from the other person's perspective. He was trying to, and Owen switched to his own perspective. "I'm trying to say." It's a subtle shift, but it changes the focus and makes his point clearer. These redirected restarts are really interesting because they often happen when someone is being careful, when they want to say something diplomatically, or when the topic is sensitive. You'll hear a lot of redirected restarts in emotional conversations, in apologies, in difficult discussions, because when we care about getting the right message across, we're more likely to stop and restart to make sure we're saying it right. Let's do another full conversation, and this time I want you to actively practice counting the restarts. Don't worry about the exact type. We're just going to count how many times someone starts and then restarts a thought. Ready? Here we go. This is a conversation between a father named Graham and his teenage son, Reuben. They're talking about Reuben's future plans. Graham says, "So I was thinking about, well, we were talking the other day about the," about what you want to do after you finish school. And I don't want to pressure you, okay? I just want to have a conversation. Ruben says, okay. I mean, I've been thinking about it. I haven't figured it all out yet, but yeah. Graham says, that's fine. That's normal. I was the same at your age. I thought I wanted to be an architect. Can you believe that? And then I realized well, I'm terrible at drawing, so. Ha! Ruben says, Dad, you're not terrible at. Okay, you are actually pretty bad at drawing. Graham says, thank you, son. Anyway, my point is that it's okay not to know. You don't have to. The thing is, you don't have to decide right now. You have time. Ruben says, yeah, I know. It's just, it kind of feels like everyone has this. Like they all know what they want, and I don't know. I feel behind. Graham says, that is so normal, Ruben. I promise you. Half the people who say they know what they want at 17, by 25, they've completely changed direction. Like your Aunt Megan. She was going to be a marine biologist. She runs a bakery now. She loves it. Ruben says, yeah, Aunt Megan she's great. Okay, that does make me feel a bit better. How many restarts did you count? If you counted somewhere between 12 and 16, you're doing really well. If you counted fewer, go back and listen again, now that you know what to look for. Don't worry if you missed some. That's exactly the point of practicing. With each pass through, you'll catch more. Now, let's talk about something that often goes alongside restarts, and that thing is filler words and phrases. You've already heard them in the conversations. I mean, you know, like, sort of, kind of, well. These are filler words, and they almost always appear at the moment of a restart. They're the verbal equivalent of a please wait signal from your computer. They mean, I'm still processing, I haven't finished my thought, please keep listening. Native speakers use these constantly. If you've ever counted the number of times someone says like or you know in a casual conversation, you'd be amazed. It's not because they have a bad vocabulary, it's just the natural rhythm of spoken language. And for a listener, these filler words are actually super helpful once you know what they mean. Because when you hear I mean or you know or a long your brain can prepare itself. Okay, a restart is coming. Stay ready. Let me show you how filler words work together with restarts in a natural conversation. This time, let's listen to someone called Vera, who is being interviewed for a job. The interviewer asks her, can you tell me about a time when you had to work under pressure? And Vera says, yeah, absolutely. So last year, I was working on this really big project for a client. I think it was maybe a 6-month project, and about 2 months in, the client changed their requirements, like significantly changed them. And so the team had to, basically start from scratch with the design. And I remember thinking at the time, this is too much. This is impossible. But then I kind of broke it down, you know? I just focused on one thing at a time. And we delivered it. On time. Which I'm still surprised by, honestly. Beautiful, right? Full of restarts, full of fillers, and yet completely understandable. You know exactly what happened. She had a difficult project that changed direction in the middle. She felt overwhelmed. She kept going, and she succeeded. All of that came through perfectly. The restarts and fillers didn't block the meaning. They carried it. One thing I want you to practice is this. When you hear a filler word during listening practice, instead of getting confused or frustrated, just think of it as a small pause button. The speaker is still building the message. Don't try to find the grammar in it. Don't try to translate it. Just wait. The meaning is coming. Be patient. And within a second or two, you'll get it. Now I want to spend some time on a specific kind of restart that is really interesting and that happens a lot in emotional or personal conversations. I'll call it the feeling restart. This is when someone is talking about something that matters to them, something personal, emotional, or difficult, and they restart because they want to make sure they're saying it in exactly the right way. This type of restart happens a lot in apologies, in serious discussions, in moments of vulnerability. Let me give you an example of this. Imagine a woman called Rachel who is trying to apologize to her friend Jonah after a misunderstanding. Rachel says, "Look, I know that what I said was, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for it to, I didn't want to hurt you. That wasn't, I was upset, and I said something I shouldn't have, and I want you to know that I didn't mean it. Not like that." Every single restart in that little speech is happening because Rachel cares. She's not looking for words because she doesn't have them. She has plenty of words. She's restarting because none of the words feel right enough for the moment. She keeps stopping and trying again because she wants to get it right. And Jonah, listening to this, doesn't hear broken language. He hears someone who genuinely means what they're saying. The restarts are actually the proof of the sincerity. That's powerful, isn't it? Let me give you another emotional example. This time, a man called Henry is telling his friend about something difficult he's going through. Henry says, I don't really know how to explain it. It's like, you know when you feel like things should be fine, but they just don't feel fine? Like everything on paper is good. Good job, nice apartment, no major problems. But inside, I'm tired. You know? Not sleep tired. Like tired of, I don't know. Just tired. Everything in that is a restart. Every single sentence he tries to start again because what he's feeling is hard to put into words. And yet you understood, didn't you? You understood that Henry is okay on the surface, but something feels wrong inside. That emotional truth came through clearly, even though, maybe even because, the language was fragmented and full of restarts. When you're listening to English and you encounter these kinds of emotional, restart-heavy conversations, I want you to do something that might sound unusual. Don't focus on the words. Focus on the feeling. The meaning in these conversations is carried not just by the words, but by the rhythm, the pauses, the tone of voice, the moments where someone stops and tries again. All of those things together create the message. Your job is to receive all of it, not just parse the vocabulary. All right, let's do some focused practice now. I'm going to give you several short conversational exchanges. After each one, I'll point out the restarts, and we'll talk about what type they are and what the speaker was really saying. This is the kind of active listening practice that is going to train your brain most effectively. First exchange. Two co-workers, Sienna and Patrick, are discussing whether to attend an optional company event. Sienna says, "Are you going to that thing on Friday? The team dinner?" Patrick says, I want to go. It's just, Friday is kind of, yeah, I'll probably go. I should go. Sienna says, "Ha! That's not a very enthusiastic yes." Patrick says, "No, I mean, it'll be fun. I've just had a long week. But yeah, I'm going." Let's break this down. Patrick's first response, I don't, I mean, I want to go, is a correction restart. He started to say he didn't want to go, stopped himself, and corrected to say, actually, he does want to go. The I mean is the correction signal. Then, it's just, Friday is a word search restart. He started to explain why he was hesitant and couldn't quite find the words, so he trailed off. Finally, I've just had a long week is another correction restart. He adjusted from the present tense, I'm just, to the more specific explanation, I've just had a long week. All of these restarts together paint a picture of someone who is tired, maybe a bit reluctant, but is choosing to do the right thing and go anyway. That human complexity came through entirely from the restarts. Second exchange. A mother named Caroline and her daughter Maya are talking about a decision Maya has made. Maya says, "Mom, I've decided I want to take a gap year." Caroline pauses and says, Okay, I'm not against it. I just want to understand." Maya says, I'm not running away from anything. I just think I need some time to figure out what I actually want before I spend 3 years studying the wrong thing. Caroline says, Okay, that's actually a really mature way to, yeah, okay, I support you. Every word in that exchange carries emotion and restarting. When Caroline says, I'm not against it, the restart tells you she was controlling her reaction, choosing her words carefully, not wanting to say something she'd regret. When Maya says, I'm not running away, she's anticipating what her mother might be thinking and correcting it preemptively. And when Caroline ends with, okay, that's actually a really mature way to, she restarts because the feeling she's experiencing, surprise, pride, maybe a little sadness, is coming up in the middle of the sentence. The restart is the emotion. You can feel the whole conversation in those restarts. And as a listener, even if you didn't understand every word, you would feel the arc of this conversation. Tension, honesty, resolution, love. That's what makes spoken English so rich. Third exchange. Two friends, Dennis and Yuki, are talking about a movie they just watched. Dennis says, "What did you think?" "I thought there were parts I really liked. But overall, I'm not sure." Yuki says, Yeah, I think I need to sit with it. There's something about the ending that it bothered me, but I don't know how to explain it." Dennis says, "Yeah, it's like the whole film was building to something, and then it just didn't. You know? Like it was almost there, and then, yeah." Yuki says, "Exactly. Like the director. I feel like maybe the director ran out of, or maybe they made a choice to leave it open, but it felt incomplete." Dennis says, "Yeah, that word. Incomplete. That's it. This one is full of unfinished thoughts. The whole film was building to something, and then it just didn't. That dash, that pause, that restart. It's describing exactly the feeling the movie gave them. They're using the grammar of restarts to mirror the film's incomplete structure. Isn't that fascinating? Language is incredible. Now let's talk about how you can practice this on your own. Because understanding restarts in a lesson with me is one thing. The real challenge is hearing them in the wild. in real conversations, in podcasts, in shows, in movies. And the good news is that practice doesn't have to be hard. It can actually be really enjoyable. The first thing I want you to do is watch at least one conversation in English every day without subtitles. I know. That feels scary. But here's the thing. Start with something easy. A cooking show, a light talk show, a casual vlog. Something where the topic isn't too complicated. And instead of trying to understand every word, just focus on following the general meaning. When you hear a restart, don't panic. Just keep listening. You'll usually get the meaning from the context around it. The second thing I want you to do is listen for filler words. Every time you hear I mean, you know, like, sort of, just take a mental note. That's a potential restart signal. Your brain will start learning. Filler words mean wait for the real message. The third thing is this. When you're talking in English, yes, this works in your speaking too. Give yourself permission to restart. When you're in the middle of a sentence and you realize it's not coming out right, stop. Say, I mean, or actually, or let me say that again, and restart. Doing this in your own speech will help you recognize it so much more easily when you hear it from others. The fourth practice tip is to find a podcast or a YouTube channel. And of course, I recommend English in Fluency. Stay with us, where real conversations happen. Not scripted dialogues, not reading from a page. Real, spontaneous conversation. And just listen regularly. The more exposure you have, the more your brain normalizes restarts and stops being confused by them. Now, let's do one more extended conversation together. This one is going to be a longer exchange, and it's going to have every type of restart we've talked about today. Word search restarts, correction restarts, redirected restarts, and feeling restarts. I want you to listen all the way through, once just for meaning. Then, if you want extra practice, go back and try to find each type. Here we go. The scenario is this. Two friends, Lena and Sam, are at a park. Lena has just found out she didn't get a job she really wanted, and Sam is trying to support her. Sam says, "Hey, how are you doing? After you got the news?" Lena says, I don't know. I keep going back and forth. Like sometimes I'm fine. I think, okay, another opportunity will come. And then other times it feels really unfair. You know? Sam says, "Of course it does. It is unfair. You were the best. From everything you told me about the process, you were clearly the most prepared. And I don't understand what they were looking for." Lena says, "Well, apparently the other person had more. They had a different kind of experience. More international, I think. Or that's what I was told. Maybe that's the reason, or maybe that's just I don't know. It's hard to know if they're being honest when they give you feedback, you know?" Sam says, "Yeah, that's so true. And honestly, and I'm not just saying this, you shouldn't take the feedback too. Like, feedback from a rejection it's complicated. Because they're not going to say, we just like the other person better. They'll find a professional reason." Lena says, "Right. And the thing is, I genuinely thought I felt good about the interviews. Like it wasn't just hope. I felt like we connected, me and the panel. I felt like there was a real conversation happening." Sam says, "That could have been real. Maybe they did like you. Maybe it really was just one small thing that tipped it the other way. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? When you did well, but someone else did just slightly better on one dimension that you couldn't even have predicted. Lena says, yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like you prepare for everything you can prepare for, and then they decide based on something you couldn't have, something you couldn't have controlled. And then you have to be okay with it, which I'm working on. Sam says, you'll get there. And you will. The right thing is coming. I genuinely believe that. I'm not saying that to make you feel better. I really do believe it. Lena says, thank you. I know. I do. I do know that, somewhere. It's just hard to feel it right now. Sam says, that's okay. You don't have to feel it right now. You just have to give it some time. Now that was a beautiful, real conversation. The kind of conversation that you will encounter in real English-speaking situations. Let's count the restart types together. When Sam says, you were the best, I mean, from everything you told me, that's a correction restart. He started to make a big claim. You were the best, and then softened it with evidence. From everything you told me. When Lena says, it feels really unfair, that's a word search restart, plus a subtle shift from her internal feeling to a more universal statement. She started with I and shifted to it, a small change that made the statement feel bigger, more real, not just personal. When Sam says, you shouldn't take the feedback too, like feedback from a rejection is not, it's complicated. That's a redirected restart. He was going to say something like, you shouldn't take it too personally. But he decided partway through that wasn't quite what he wanted to say. He redirected toward a more nuanced point about why rejection feedback is unreliable. That redirect actually made his advice better. When Lena says, I genuinely thought there's a feeling restart. She was going to say, I thought this was going to work, or I thought this was the one. But the emotion of it stopped her before she could finish. The restart there is the feeling. It's the loss. You feel it in the break. And when Sam says, I'm not saying that to make you feel better, I really do believe it. He's doing a correction restart. He anticipated that Lena might hear his encouragement as hollow, so he corrected the possible misread before it happened. He restarted and clarified his own sincerity. That's a very human thing to do. This conversation is full of care, full of realness, and it's full of restarts. And every single restart added to the meaning rather than taking away from it. I hope you can feel that. Okay. So let's bring everything together now. Let's just take a moment and summarize what we've learned today. Because you've actually learned a lot, even if it didn't feel like a traditional English lesson. First, we talked about what restarts are. Moments where a speaker starts a thought, stops, and begins again. We said this is completely normal and happens in every language, in every conversation, all day long. We talked about the 4 main types. The word search restart, where someone is looking for the right word. The correction restart, where someone realizes they said something wrong and corrects it. The redirected restart, where someone decides to express the same idea in a clearer or different way. And the feeling restart, where the emotion of the moment causes the speaker to pause and try again. We talked about filler words, Uh, I mean, like, you know, and how they function as signals that a restart is coming. Instead of being confused by them, we can use them as little flags that tell our brain, wait here, the real message is about to arrive. We did several full conversations together. Sophie and Daniel talking about a restaurant, Priya and Marcus talking about work, Carmen and Felix catching up over coffee, Graham and Reuben talking about the future, Sienna and Patrick deciding about a dinner, Caroline and Maya discussing a gap year, Dennis and Yuki reviewing a movie, and Lena and Sam having a heartfelt conversation about disappointment. And in every single one of those conversations, we found restarts. And in every single one, the meaning was clear. The restarts were not obstacles. They were part of the meaning. And I gave you 4 practice tips. Watch English without subtitles. Listen for filler words as restart signals. Give yourself permission to restart in your own speaking. And seek out natural, unscripted English conversations to listen to regularly. Now, I want to say something to you before we close today. Learning a language is one of the most human things you can do. Because language is how we connect. It's how we share our thoughts, our feelings, our stories. And when you're learning English, or any language, there's always a point where you move from understanding the structure to understanding the soul of how people actually talk. That shift is everything. That's the difference between knowing English and feeling comfortable in English. And what we worked on today, understanding restarts, following real conversation flow, not being thrown off by the way real speakers actually speak. This is part of that shift. This is you moving closer to that natural, comfortable, fluent level where English just flows in and your brain processes it without effort. You're doing the work. You're here, listening, practicing, growing, and that deserves to be acknowledged. Every session, every episode, every time you choose to push past confusion and keep listening, that's progress. Real progress. The kind that stacks up quietly, and then one day you realize you understood a whole conversation without stopping once. That day is coming for you. I genuinely believe that. So here's your call to action for today. I want you to go find one real, unscripted conversation in English. A YouTube video, a podcast, a talk show clip. And I want you to listen to it for at least 5 minutes without stopping. Don't use subtitles. Don't pause. Just listen. And every time you hear a restart, instead of feeling confused, just smile a little and think, I know what that is. That's a restart. That's just how people talk. And keep listening. Do that today, right after this episode, and then come back and keep practicing with us here at English in Fluency. If you found this episode helpful, and I really hope you did, please share it with someone who is also working on their English, because they need to know about this too. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. We put out new content regularly, all of it designed to help you understand real English the way it's really spoken. Not just textbook English, not just perfect English, real English, human English, the kind that flows and hesitates and restarts, and still makes perfect sense. I'm Alex, and this has been English in Fluency. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Actually, before you go, I want to do a little more with you today because I feel like we've built something good here and I want to push it just a little further. Because there's one more dimension of restarts that I haven't talked about yet, and it's maybe the most practical one for your everyday listening. And that is this. Restarts don't just happen in emotional conversations or casual catch-ups. They happen everywhere. In classrooms, in business meetings, in customer service calls, in debates, in speeches. Even in formal English, restarts happen. They just look a little different. In formal English, restarts tend to be shorter and more controlled. You won't hear as many and sounds in a business presentation, for example, but you will still hear correction restarts and redirected restarts. A speaker at a conference might say, "The data shows," or rather, "what the data suggests is." That's a redirected restart in a very polished professional context. Or a teacher might say, "The answer is, well, the correct way to think about it is." That's a correction restart in an educational setting. The form is slightly more refined, but the function is exactly the same. Let me walk you through a formal example now. Imagine you're in a business meeting. Two colleagues, Andrea and Tom, are presenting to their team. Andrea is explaining a budget decision, and she says, "The reason we went with the smaller vendor is that what I want to emphasize is that cost was a factor, yes, but not the only one. The quality of their proposal it was genuinely impressive. And the timeline they offered we felt it was more realistic than what the larger companies were presenting." Tom adds, "Exactly. And we, the team, felt, after reviewing all the proposals, that this represented the best balance of value and deliverability. So that's the direction we're going." Even in that professional context, measured voices, formal language, the restarts are there. Andrea's "the reason we went with. What I want to emphasize is a redirected restart." She started with a reason, but then realized she wanted to frame it more carefully. Tom's that this represented the best balance is a classic word search restart, followed by a redirected restart. He wanted to say the most something, but the right word didn't come fast enough, so he restarted with a fuller, clearer phrase. In a business listening context, your job is the same as in a casual conversation. Don't focus on the broken moment. Focus on where the sentence lands. The end point of the restart is where the meaning lives. Every time. Where does the sentence finally finish? That's what you need. The path it took to get there is just the process. Now, I want to talk to you about something that I think is really going to help you in real-world listening, and that is the concept of tolerating ambiguity. In a classroom, English is often taught as something with clear answers. This word means this. This grammar pattern is used like this, and that's useful. Structure helps us learn. But real spoken English is not always structured. Real spoken English is sometimes messy, incomplete, and, because of restarts, grammatically odd. And as a learner, you have to develop what language teachers call tolerance for ambiguity. That means being comfortable even when you don't understand every word, even when the sentence seems broken, even when someone restarts 4 times before getting to the point. And here's the key insight. You don't need to understand everything. You need to understand enough. You need to follow the main ideas. You need to track the emotional tone. You need to catch the key words. And if a restart gets in the way of one sentence, that's fine. The next sentence will give you more information and you can catch up. Think about listening to music in English. You probably don't understand every single word in every song you've ever listened to, but you feel the song. You understand the vibe. You know if it's happy or sad or angry or nostalgic. You might miss a few words, but you get the story. Listening to English conversation is the same. You're tracking meaning, not transcribing a dictation. Give yourself permission to not catch everything. That permission, actually, is what unlocks fluency. I want to practice with you now in a slightly different way. I'm going to give you some sentences with restarts, and I want you to think about them very carefully and identify exactly where the restart happens and what the speaker's final, real message was. This is the skill that will make the biggest difference in your actual listening comprehension. Sentence 1. She was supposed to. I thought she was coming at 3 o'clock, but apparently it's been moved to 4. The restart, she was supposed to, was abandoned. The real message arrived at, I thought she was coming at 3 o'clock. And then the final piece of information is, it's been moved to 4. Time has changed. Meeting moved from 3 to 4. That's the takeaway. Sentence 2. I've been trying to, honestly, exercise has been I've been making more of an effort to stay active lately. The restart happens twice. I've been trying to, abandoned. Exercise has been abandoned. The final message, I've been making more of an effort to stay active lately. That's what the person wanted to say. They struggled to get there, but they got there. Someone is working to be more active. Simple and clear. Sentence 3. The problem with that approach is, well, look, every approach has pros and cons, but the specific concern I have is around the timeline. 2 restarts. The problem with that approach is redirected into a more balanced framing. Every approach has pros and cons. And then the real specific point arrived. The specific concern I have is around the timeline. The person was careful not to sound too negative, so they reframed before delivering their actual concern. Timeline is the issue. Got it. Sentence 4. He was, I don't want to say anything bad about him because look, let's just say working together wasn't the easiest experience and leave it at that. This one is very interesting. 2 restarts, both driven by social caution. He was stopped because the speaker realized they were about to say something critical. Because he stopped for the same reason. And the final message was deliberately vague. Working together wasn't the easiest experience. The speaker chose not to give us the details, but we still understood. This was a difficult working relationship. The restarts here actually told us more than the words. They told us the speaker has something specific in mind, but is choosing not to share it. That's very human. And as a listener, you can read that. Let's now circle back to something I mentioned earlier and spend a bit more time on it, because it's something that comes up so much in real English. And that is the use of like in restarts. The word like is one of the most versatile, overused, and sometimes misunderstood words in modern English conversation. Depending on how it's used, like can mean such as, or similar to, or it can just be a filler word with almost no meaning. Just a pause while the brain keeps processing. And very often, like appears right at the beginning of a restart. For example, I was going to call him, but, I don't know how to say this. It felt weird, you know? The 2 instances of like there are restart signals. The speaker is looking for words, feeling uncertain about how to express something personal, and like is their way of signaling that they're still processing. You can almost imagine their hands reaching into the air, trying to grab the right phrase. Or the whole thing was just like it was really overwhelming. Like there were so many people, and the music was so loud, and I kept, like, I just wanted to leave. Every like there is a filler restart. None of them are similar to. All of them are just, I'm still finding the words, please keep listening. And the meaning comes through anyway. Big crowd, loud music, overwhelming, wanted to leave. Young native speakers especially, teens and people in their 20s, use like this way constantly. If you're watching English content aimed at younger audiences, you will hear like as a restart signal many dozens of times per episode. Once you recognize this pattern, it stops being confusing. Your brain will just filter it. This is a filler word. Keep listening for the real message. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to spend a moment on something that is slightly different from what we've covered. And that is the restart that happens at the beginning of a conversation, not the middle of a sentence. This is called the conversation opener restart, and it happens when someone starts to say something, isn't sure how to begin, and tries again at the very start. You hear this a lot when someone has something important to say or something slightly difficult to bring up. For example, "Hey, can I actually wanted to talk to you about something." Those three restarts at the very opening of the conversation. "Hey, can I?" And then, finally, "I actually wanted to talk to you about something." Those tell you immediately that this person has something on their mind, that they're a little nervous about bringing it up, and that what's coming is probably personal or serious. As a listener, that string of restarts at the start is giving you very important social information before the actual content even begins. Let's practice this one more time with a full scene. A young woman named Isla is about to have a conversation with her flatmate, Ben. She's been thinking about this for days. She says, "Ben, hey, can we, do you have a minute? I wanted to. There's something I've been meaning to say, and I don't want to make it into a big thing, but I think we should talk about it." Ben says, "Of course, what's up?" Isla says, "Okay, so it's about the cleaning. I know, I sound like a parent, but I feel like the arrangement we had kind of stopped working. And I don't want to make you feel bad. Can we rethink it? Together?" Ben says, "Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I know I've been really bad at it lately. Work it's been a lot. But that's not an excuse. What do you want to do differently?" Count the restart types in that. Isla's opening is a conversation opener restart. She tries 3 times before she lands on her actual ask. Her I sound like a parent is a correction restart. She started the simile and then felt the need to name it explicitly for impact. Her the arrangement we had kind of stopped working, that slight rising tone and trailing off, is actually a feeling restart. She softened what could have been a complaint into an observation, and the trailing question mark, even in speech you can hear the softening, shows she's being careful. Ben's I've been really bad at it lately is a classic emphatic restart. He repeated himself to underscore the admission. His work it's been a lot is a word, search restart. He started to describe his workload, but the words weren't there, so he tried a softer, more general phrase. And that's not, yeah, that's not an excuse, is a correction restart where he stopped himself from potentially sounding defensive and acknowledged that his explanation wasn't justification. That whole conversation, that whole negotiation about cleaning, every restart in it made the conversation more considerate, more careful, more human, and it resolved well. They're going to rethink the arrangement together. The restarts helped them get there. There's one more thing I want to share with you before we truly wrap up, and it's something that I think will really stay with you. When you listen to English and you start noticing restarts, and you will start noticing them now, everywhere, because that's what happens when you learn a new pattern, you might actually start to feel something unexpected. You might start to feel closer to the language, more comfortable with it, because the restarts are proof that English is not a perfect, intimidating, unreachable thing that only some special people can speak correctly. English is a living, breathing, imperfect, beautifully messy way of communicating, just like every other language, just like your first language. And native speakers are not perfect. They restart. They search for words. They change direction mid-sentence. They say and like and you know hundreds of times a day. They are just people, talking. And now you understand how they do it. You're part of that conversation. You belong in it. And that's what English in Fluency is all about. Not perfect English, real English. The kind that helps you actually connect with real people in real situations. The kind that flows even when it's imperfect. The kind that you can follow because you've trained your brain to understand not just the words, but the way the words come together and fall apart and come together again. So go out there today. Listen. Practice. Restart your own sentences when you need to. Use your fillers. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. And keep coming back here, where we'll keep working on this together, episode by episode, one real conversation at a time. I'm Alex. This is English in Fluency. Thank you for listening. See you next time. And hey, since you've made it this far, I want to give you something extra. A little bonus. Because you earned it. I want to walk you through one final exercise that ties everything together. And this one you can use as a repeatable daily practice every single day from now on. I call it the shadow and restart drill. Here's how it works. You find a clip of someone speaking natural, unscripted English. Could be a podcast, could be a short interview on YouTube, could be a clip from a talk show. Anything where real people are just talking spontaneously. You listen to a 30-second section. Just 30 seconds. You listen once with your full attention. Then you listen again, but this time, every time you hear a restart. Any kind of restart. A hesitation, a filler, a correction. You pause the audio and repeat what the person said. Not just the final clean version. The whole thing, including the restart. Say, I was really surprised by that, out loud if that's what the speaker said. Don't clean it up. Say the restart. Why? Because this does two things at once. It trains your ear to hear the restart, which improves your listening. And it trains your mouth to make restarts naturally, which improves your speaking. When you practice restarts in your output, your brain normalizes them in your input. The two skills feed each other. And the more you shadow real restarts, the more comfortable you become with the imperfections of real English on both ends, as a listener and as a speaker. You'll probably feel a bit silly at first, saying and like and I mean out loud while practicing. That's okay. That feeling goes away quickly. And what replaces it is fluency. Real, organic fluency that sounds natural because it is natural. Try the shadow and restart drill for just 5 minutes a day for 2 weeks. I promise you'll notice a difference. Your listening comprehension will go up. Your speaking confidence will go up. And that gap, that frustrating gap between the English you know and the English you can actually use in real situations, will start to close. We've covered a lot today, and I want to make sure you leave with a clear picture of everything. So let's do one final, clean summary. Not to be repetitive, I just want to give your brain one last pass through everything so it sticks. Restarts are a natural and normal part of spoken English. Every native speaker does them constantly, without thinking about it. There are 4 main types. The word search restart, where the speaker is looking for the right word and pauses while finding it. The correction restart, where the speaker catches an error and fixes it mid-sentence. The redirected restart, where the speaker consciously decides to express an idea in a clearer or different way. And the feeling restart, where emotion causes the speaker to pause and try again. Filler words like I mean, like, you know, and sort of almost always appear alongside restarts and serve as signals to the listener that a restart is happening. The key listening strategy is always to wait for the end of the restart. The end point of the sentence is where the real meaning lives. In formal English, restarts happen too, just in a slightly more controlled way. Your goal as a listener is not to understand every word, but to understand enough, to follow the main ideas and the emotional tone even through the imperfections. And your daily practice should include real, unscripted English listening without subtitles, attention to filler words, permission to restart in your own speaking, and the shadow and restart drill. That is a complete toolkit for handling restarts in English. You now know more about this specific aspect of real English than the majority of people who are studying the language right now. And that knowledge, combined with regular practice, is going to make a real difference in your life, in your work, in your travel, in your friendships, in every situation where English matters to you. You know what I find the most exciting about teaching English? It's moments like this, when something that used to feel random and confusing suddenly makes sense. When a learner shifts from, I don't understand why English sounds like that, to, oh, I see exactly what's happening there. That shift, that click, is everything, and I believe it happened for you today. I hope it did. Thank you, sincerely, for spending this time with me and with English in Fluency. Your commitment to improving your English is something to be proud of. Language learning is not easy. It takes time and patience and a willingness to sit with confusion before it becomes clarity. And that's exactly what you did today. You sat with the confusion of restarts, you worked through it with me, and now it's clarity. It's yours. If you have a friend or a family member who is also learning English, share this episode with them, because what we talked about today is going to help them just as much as it helped you. Let's grow this community of learners together. Let's support each other. Let's make real English accessible to everyone who wants it. Subscribe to English in Fluency if you haven't yet. We have new episodes coming regularly, and each one is designed to give you something practical that you can use right away in real English situations, not just grammar rules, not just vocabulary lists, real, living English, the way it actually works when real people use it. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep listening, keep practicing, keep going. You've got this. I'm Alex. This is English in Fluency. Take care. One last thought, and then I'll really let you go. I've been doing this for a while now, teaching English, creating content, talking to learners at every level. And one thing I hear over and over again is, "Alex, I understand English when I read it, but when I listen, I get lost." And restarts are a huge part of why. Because reading shows you the polished product. Listening shows you the messy, beautiful process. And the gap between those two things is exactly what we worked on today. You've crossed a little bit of that gap today. And the more you practice, the more of it you'll cross. One episode, one conversation, one restart at a time. I'm proud of you. Keep going.